Hello everyone and welcome back to a new video on my channel. In this video I would like to talk about using the Skywatcher 150 PDS Newtonian telescope in combination with a full-frame camera. So I've used this telescope over the last few years for astrophotography. I've used it in combination with different cameras, and most time I've used these APC sensors. And I've planned to capture a deep sky object with this telescope in combination with a full-frame camera. You clicked on this video because you're interested whether you can use a full-frame camera in combination with this telescope. Then this video is very helpful to you, because in this video I would like to introduce the equipment I've used for these images, and I would like to show you images I've captured with a full-frame camera in combination with this telescope. But now let's get started. So first of all, I would like to mention that there are two different versions of this telescope. So two different versions of the Skywatcher 150-750 telescope. So on the one hand there is the normal version, and on the other hand there is the PDS version. So I've used the PDS version. So you can use both telescopes for astrophotography, but the PDS version is modified for astrophotography. So it's a bit shorter, which means that it's easier for you to achieve focus and perfect stars in the end. And furthermore, the mirror built in the front of the telescope. So right here, this mirror is a bit bigger when using the PDS version for astrophotography, which means that you can use bigger sensors for astrophotography. That's the idea behind the PDS version of this telescope. So when looking in the internet, some people say that the PDS version is so good for astrophotography that you can even use a full-frame camera. And for sure I wanted to test that, because I was not sure whether this telescope is actually really suitable for full-frame cameras. First of all, let me introduce the equipment I've used. So I've used the Skywatcher HEQ5 Pro Go-To mount, which is this mount. On the top I've used the telescope, and I've used the Ace Air Pro for controlling the entire deep sky astrophotography setup. And on the back I've used a guiding system, so a 60mm guide scope in combination with the CWO ASI 120mm mini mono guiding camera. So right at the front I've attached a full-frame camera. In this case I've decided to go for the Canon EOS 60A, which is the astro-modified version of the Canon EOS 60. So now back to the topic of this video. So whether this telescope is really suitable for a full-frame camera is quite difficult to answer, because that really depends on the expectations you have when planning to capture these images. Because for sure, when using a full-frame camera in combination with this telescope, the edges will be a bit darker. And I already knew that before capturing these images with a full-frame camera. But for me personally, there was the question, how good will the image in the end be? So when doing a bit of processing. But now I would like to start by showing you a single light frame I've captured with this telescope in combination with a full-frame camera. So this is right now a single light frame I've captured with this telescope. So I've used a single exposure time of 3 minutes, which is possible due to using an auto-guiding system. So without using an auto-guiding system, you will get star trails in the images when using a very long exposure time. But this is the image I've captured in this case. So in this image you can see the California nebula, but you can see the final stacked image later on as well. So when zooming in, you can first of all see that the stars do look perfectly round in the center, as expected. So for sure, when using it in combination with a full-frame camera, the stars in the center will still look quite good. So when going into the edges and the corners, that's where it's getting interesting, because the full-frame camera is quite big compared to other cameras. So when comparing the sensor built in the Canon EOS 60A, which is a full-frame camera, to these dedicated astrophotography cameras, these cameras often have smaller sensors. So for example, the sensor of the CWO ASI 585 is very small compared to this camera. And therefore, the very interesting regions are these outermost regions of the image, because that's where it is getting complicated when using a full-frame camera in combination with this telescope. So now let's zoom back in. So as you can see, when going further away from the sensor, you can already see that the stars are no longer perfectly round. And now when going into the outermost regions of this image, you can see that we do have a few problems. So first of all, you can see that the stars do not look that good, and I guess in this corner these stars are not looking that good as well. So in each corner definitely, but in this case you can see that this star is not that round. So this image right now is the image I've captured with the camera, so it's not cropped. So this is what you'll get when using a full-frame camera in combination with this telescope. So on the one hand, you can see that the stars do not look that good in the others regions, and on the other side, you can see that the edges are a bit darker compared to the center of your image. And when stacking all of these images, you can see that the edges are even darker. So in this image, it's not that complicated, but in the end, you can see that in post-processing, it will be very challenging removing that. So now I would like to go over to the stacked image. So I've stacked and combined all of the images I've captured. And in the stacked image, you can definitely see that it's quite a problem when using it in a combination with a full-frame camera, so the telescope. So right now you can see the stacked image. So this is the stacked image I've captured, and I've just stretched the image a bit in order to see a few details in the image. So now you can see a few details in the California nebula, but when zooming in, you can definitely see that the stars are looking quite good in the center. But when going into these outer regions, you can see that the edges are even darker in this case. And you can see that we are losing a lot of structures here in these regions, and it's definitely not looking that good. So in this image, you can definitely see that the telescope is not that suitable for a full-frame camera. But in post-processing, we can process and edit the image a bit in order to remove that, but still the stars will not look that good. So now you have two different options. So on the one hand, you can crop the entire image. So let's say you're using this framing here, like this, but then you're losing a lot of details, especially in these regions, because you would like to capture a very big image, so a very big field of view. And when cropping the image like this, you're losing a lot of details, unfortunately. Therefore, I've used the second option, which is correcting the image. And by editing the image, I was able to correct the entire image in the end. And that was very, very helpful for me. So now I would like to go over to the final image I've captured. And that is this one. So this is the image I've captured in that night. I have not cropped this image, so as you can see in the edges, the stars still do not look that good. For sure, you can crop the image a bit in order to only use the framing of the images where these stars are the best. So you have to decide whether you would like to crop this image. I've decided against cropping the image because the California nebula is a quite big object in night sky, and I've planned to use the entire field of view. But as you can see, I was able to correct the entire image, and now the corners do look quite good, especially when you're looking at this image like this. So definitely you can use the telescope in combination with a full-frame camera. But there are definitely a few disadvantages of using this telescope in combination with a full-frame camera. So on the one hand, these stars will not look that good in the corners, which is not that good. So perhaps you have to crop the entire image. For sure, when capturing smaller objects, such as smaller galaxies or smaller nebulae, you can definitely crop the image, and you can only use this framing of the image, and then it's not a problem for you. But generally speaking, post-processing will definitely be more challenging in this case. So processing this image was definitely one of the most difficult images I've ever captured so far, because it was quite difficult for me to correct the entire image, but still you can see that it's definitely possible. So if you're planning to really use a full-frame camera in combination with this telescope, it's possible, but I would not recommend it, because as you can see, these stars do not look that good in the corners. When using it in combination with an APC sensor, it's definitely working quite good, and these stars do look perfect even in the outermost regions of your image. So this is actually everything I've planned to mention so far about using this telescope in combination with a full-frame camera. If you have any further questions, definitely feel free to ask me down below in the comments, and I will definitely help you. If this video was interesting and helpful to you, I would really appreciate a like and a subscription. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, clear skies, Felix.